Welcome to the Brute Strength Podcast, bringing you worldwide experts from all areas of health and fitness. We cover training, nutrition, coaching, and mindset. Welcome your host, strength and conditioning coach, 2012 and 2013 CrossFit Games champ, Michael Cazayoux. Mind, body, brute.
Hey, and welcome back. My name is Mike Cazayoux, and you're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. This week's guest is Dawn Fletcher of the Mentality WOD. Dawn has a master's in sports psychology, and if you know anything about me, you know that this is one of my favorite topics. In general, I think that understanding and conquering our own minds is the highest leverage thing that we can do for our performance and our lives. In this show, we talk about her personal experience with anxiety and panic attacks and how that relates to her career. We talk about a shit-talking friend that taught her an important lesson, the fundamentals of mindset training, building self-awareness, the topic of essentialism, setting and managing expectations, and more. Before we get started on this show, I've got something new for you. I've got a downloadable PDF with the top 5 most downloaded podcasts, along with the biggest takeaways from each. You can access that at brutestrengthtraining.com/top5. That's brutestrengthtraining.com/top5. Enjoy the show. Dawn, what's up? Thanks for joining me today.
Hey, thanks for having me, Michael.
I've really been looking forward to this. Obviously, to people that listen to this podcast often, mindset is by far my favorite topic. And so I just geek out anytime I get to talk to an expert about it. So I'm really excited to have you on and to uncover some of the things that you're doing that's working with people. So first, I want to talk about how you got into this work in the first place. Before the show, you told me that you had just read years ago, you had just read the 4-Hour Work Week and some non-conformity stuff. So those sounded really interesting to me. What were the underlying ideas that were kind of going around in your head that prompted you to start this online business, Mentality WOD?
Well, after I came out of graduate school with like a master's degree and my CSCS, I was still training clients and I began working with the CrossFit community. And I just was like, I don't know where this is going to take me. You know, I was putting in a lot of hours with clients and I was still like bouncing around, and I just didn't feel like I was going to own a gym or work in the confines of 4 walls for very long. And one of my buddies was like, let's start putting your stuff online. This was maybe 8 years ago. And so I started reading, about having an online coaching business and 4-Hour Work Week and the art of nonconformity. And I felt like a light bulb went off, and I was really excited to start putting information and content online and to be able to, my goal at the time was to work as little as possible, to do meaningful work, but to not make it my life. And so the online platform started, and it's continued now since eight plus years later. So
the thing you said about working as little as possible, do you think that is because you're lazy or is it something else?
I would hope not, but I think after starting the personal training business, after my undergrad, I jumped right into personal training, and I was working like 40 to 60 hours a week with clients. I became a fitness director. I was at a global gym. It was all about hitting numbers and reaching sales goals and, driving my team and also training as many people as possible. That taught me a lot in the first couple of years when I was working in fitness. And after that, I knew I wanted to pursue more of my passion, which was really in sport and performance psychology. And that's when I moved across the country to start my master's program at San Diego State. And during that time, again, it was just grind, work, do as much as possible because I was in a new, really cool city. I was starting a new, really cool master's program. I wanted to get as much experience as I could as far as working with CrossFit athletes, volunteering at like a strength and conditioning or at San Diego State's strength and conditioning department, and just training for marathons, training for triathlons, like trying to do it all. So I was functioning like that for quite a few years, and it wasn't, I feel like it wasn't serving me any longer. I wanted to slow down, pull back, still obviously coach others and help people, but I was really ready for a change in my professional and personal life.
Yeah, I love all of that. I read The 4 Hour Work Week very early on in my career as well. And one of the things that I got out of it, and I think one of the main tenets of the book is don't like get rid of work and work less just for the sake of working less, but it's all about figuring out what what you love to do, B, what is the most valuable use of your time, right? So many of us do so many things throughout the day just to have this feeling of being busy. And it comes with kind of like a badge of honor, especially in Western culture, but certainly all over the world. Hard work is equated with like you have higher morality, which I think is just nowadays I think is complete bullshit. But I grew up, fully believing that hard work equals a better human being. And so that book was really transformative for me as well. So I want to know about your personal relationship to mental performance. And you mentioned before the show, again, an early story about a friend of yours talking shit to you during one of your workouts. Tell me about that.
This was just when so I started getting plugged in with coaching CrossFit in like 2007, 2008, when I first heard about it. Luckily enough, at that time, I was working at the Global Gym, which was about 5 miles from the first gym in Maryland and outside of Baltimore. So I got plugged in with coaching there and subbing there, and that's when my interest for CrossFit started to peak. But when I moved out to San Diego, it was time to get plugged in with the community out here. And so the first box I went to, I made a connection with a guy who's now a great friend of mine, Gio, who owns CrossFit Federal Hill and a couple other boxes in the Baltimore area. He was out here in San Diego, and it was the first time meeting him, and he was trying to help me out with some like squats and pull-ups. And he was being like, he's the nicest guy ever. He was being super encouraging and like, you got this, you can do this. And I remember just being like, you know what? That's not working for me. I need you to talk some shit to me. Like, that's going to help me a lot more. And it was just funny because he's like too nice to talk shit to someone, especially a girl who he had just met, and he was like helping for the first time with like one of her CrossFit workouts. So it just, it just ties into the idea that we're all different, and different things work for everybody. And as a coach as well, it's like, got to be able to tap into those different styles so that you can reach different individuals depending on what their need is or what their style is.
Awesome. So I know early on as well, you had some experience with anxiety and panic attacks and that kind of thing. Are you open to sharing about that?
Totally.
So tell me about it. Yeah. What was going on? When did you experience all of that kind of stuff?
I guess the anxiety, I first started noticing when I was like maybe 18, 19, just going off to college. But it got really bad there for a few years, and started having just panic attacks and in different situations. And it's funny because no one on the outside would know. I was playing 3 sports in college, like the captain of my soccer team, the life of the party, like super outgoing and well adapted. But inside I was just struggling, I was like, I didn't know what the hell was going on with me. And then these panic attacks just started happening like more and more frequently. And
what was like the story going on in your head? Can you remember?
I remember just feeling like, what the hell is wrong with me? Mm-hmm. Like on the outside, I would kind of feel fine. And the inside, it was just like turmoil. And I think the hardest part was that I couldn't understand it. Mm-hmm. I couldn't explain it and I couldn't understand it. It was just kind of physiologically happening. And I felt like really unsettled a lot. Yep. And it's something that I know, like it runs in my family, and it's something that I still work through all the time. But like the hardcore panic attacks were really tough for me for quite a few years. And then I think it became like agoraphobia, which is essentially just you're afraid of having the panic. You're afraid of the fear. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of people struggle with that now that I've talked with more people about it. But, that was something just early on in my 20s that really kind of defined me and helped me to start sharing more of what was going on with me, being more empathetic, actually helping me now be a better coach to people that work through different anxieties and fears and struggles and doubts, and accepting that it's really normal and there's millions of people all over the world that have the same struggles.
Mm-hmm. It seems to me that a lot of the people that do this kind of work, and even like therapy and even sometimes psychiatry, are people that have gone through some kind of significant either trauma or just hardship themselves. Right. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I would hope that people continue to find ways to use their struggle. Mm-hmm. And some of the best coaches and influencers I know are totally open about their own struggles, and it just makes them so much more appealing to me personally.
So the mindset topic in CrossFit has become super, super popular, right? But we both know that very, very few people know anything about what that actually means outside of like an inspirational post on Instagram. So where does all this work begin for people? What are the fundamentals?
I totally agree with that. Awareness, first and foremost, is, I believe, the foundation for any type of personal growth is awareness, and athletically and also personally. Mm-hmm. So just starting to learn more about yourself, reading more books, talking with more individuals, just different practices that you can do to build more self-awareness. That's the starting point. And from there,
let's dive into that a little bit.
Let's do it.
So obviously you can read a book that has some different ideas that help spark like some introspection. But I think one of the most useful tools for building self-awareness is having other people, right? Having other people's points of views. How do you encourage people or help them develop the courage to solicit constructive feedback from others so that they can identify their blind spots in life?
Right. Most of the time, the individuals I'm working with or speaking to are already really driven, motivated individuals already. And so they're hardwired to want to do the hard thing, But when you begin talking about, hey, would it be challenging for you to go to therapy? Would it be challenging for you to talk about your vulnerabilities? Would it be challenging you to have a hard conversation with your significant other? If that person's like, yeah, well, then let's talk about the benefits of facing challenge. If they're used to doing hard workouts, but that's kind of easy for them to just push themselves physically in the gym, well, let's talk about the other stuff that's hard. So if it would be challenging for you to solicit the advice of others and to go get help and to ask people for their feedback, well, let's practice that. Let's play with it and explore it a little bit and try some experiments, and see what happens.
So kind of like, do you ever start with like a small, I don't know, like an easy one first, like an easy conversation first, and have them and then report back to you and then go on from there?
For sure.
How it works?
Yep. Like just go ask somebody in your life how you could be a better blank. Mm-hmm. Like whether it's teacher, dad, spouse, just go ask one person today, how could you be a better blank, and see what they say.
Right.
And then let's try that again the next day with somebody else. And then let's explore like how we can do that in an even deeper, more meaningful way.
Got it. What are some other ways to build self-awareness?
Experimentation. I'm a big fan of trying new things and putting yourself out there in different ways. And so I think the best ways to learn about ourselves is to try new things and get ourselves slightly uncomfortable. And so the willingness to continue to put yourself in new and different situations to kind of see what happens, see how you respond, and see what your natural tendencies might be. We're all wired a little bit differently. And I think it's kind of fun to play with that, to see maybe what my natural tendency would be and to work on training it.
Do you have people do any kind of journaling to synthesize those experiences, or is it just through conversations with you?
Most everybody I know does some type of journaling or reflection and then reports back to me, so that they're gaining some more awareness. And then myself as a coach is also getting to know them better, which is really important to me, being able to guide them or encourage them, obviously, to get to know them better. So most people I work with or talk to keep a daily journal and do some reflections on themselves in their daily life and also within their training.
Gotcha. So building self-awareness obviously gives us the ability to know what we need to actually change, right? Because we can't change what we're not aware of. So what are some of the other fundamentals?
From there, we just go on and talk about their deepest motivations and desires. What are you trying to do? What matters most to you? And then defining what's in your way or what can we work on till we can get you closer to that goal. So it
what does
is
that
like
process look like?
you would call it like motivation and goal setting, but I try to stay away from those words a lot because I feel like they're overused and just kind of general. But getting to, having a conversation with someone or having them write down some thoughts and respond to some journal prompts about what do you really want? What really is driving you? What are your key values? And starting there and really defining what that person's passions are, what their gifts are, and what they're trying to accomplish.
Gotcha. So moving on a little bit, a lot of people set a goal of, say, making it to regionals or making it to the CrossFit Games. And there's a very set process. I say a very set process. There's like there's at least a loosely identified process for making it and reaching that goal, right? It includes working out 4 to 6 hours a day, getting body work several days a week. Your nutrition has to be completely dialed in. You have to have some genetic talent, like blah, 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 like so many different things that you have to be doing to even have a shot at making it to this high level. So many people make this goal. Probably 1% of people that like verbalize like that is their goal actually have the commitment to following that process. What I see most people doing is the easy stuff, right? Which is just the 4 to 6 hours in the gym. They just that's so easy. That's no problem. Most people, and they just don't understand that they're not doing the rest, right? They don't understand what it actually takes. So I'm curious, how much of what you do is simply helping people set and manage their expectations about surrounding their goals?
That's a huge part of it. Absolutely. Helping someone understand why aren't they currently at that goal? Is it a physical restraint? Is it a mental restraint? Is it both? Identifying the hurdles and the obstacles. Is it that you don't have enough time? And then let's look at that. Is it that you're too tired? Or that you feel like you have a physical limitation or weakness? Let's dive into that. So by all means, it's a lot about helping someone understand their expectations and setting realistic timelines for what they're trying to accomplish. But first and foremost, they got to get real with themselves. Like what's limiting you? What's holding you back? What's hindering you? And it's partially my job to help that person discover it for themselves. Mm-hmm. And then also sometimes I just got to flat out be like, hey, here's what I see, take it or leave it. But thankfully there's a lot of other coaches and you guys are doing a great job and some other great podcasts and materials now that are helping people understand a lot better what it takes to get to that level. There's more information. There's more better information than when I started 8+ years ago.
Right. So there seems to be a few big areas in training the mind. On one hand, there's the in competition stuff, right? Like getting into flow state being one of the in competition pieces of mindset. Then there's the out of competition preparation for getting into those optimal states in competition, right? It takes all year long to be able to have a positive self-talk and like actually get yourself into a positive state, an optimal state in competition. Then, and this is in my opinion, the room for most growth for most people, it's the mindset that leads to more consistent effort in training, right? So it seems like most people, or it seems like the biggest thing that gets in the way of this for people is that they just focus on the outcome, right? They're just focused on hitting a PR, or they're focused on winning a championship. And so when something doesn't go as planned, or if they're not progressing as quickly as possible, it really, really gets in their way and has them in a constant negative state, and just really keeps them from actually moving towards their goals. So how do you help people overcome this just constant focus on outcomes?
Well, part of it is every single day before every training session, if we're talking about specifically for training and for CrossFit, before every training session, identifying what your clear intentions are and what your goals for that workout is. And each training piece could be a little bit different. And so it's just setting those process-oriented goals, meaning you have a workout, like what are you trying to do in that workout? What are you actually practicing and working on? Not what times you want to achieve and what like outcome do you want as far as numbers or weight lifted, but what are you trying to get better at during that workout? Is it sometimes like pacing, body language, breathing, transitions, or is it like I'm going to try to push myself and go unbroken today because I always pace too much, or I'm going to try to, take 5-second breaks every single time I rest during my snatches, like picking specific goals for you that are actually going to help you become a more well-rounded CrossFitter, not picking goals for yourself that are just outcome oriented, like I'm going to win or hit this time or lift this amount of weight. Mm-hmm. So the process starts with every single day, setting clear intentions, process oriented goals about what's going to help you become a better athlete in that training session. Most of the time, it means that you're going to have to put some of your ego aside and maybe even be willing to go slower in a workout or achieve fewer reps in a workout because you're actually going to be practicing something that day. And it doesn't mean that that's going to allow you to have the best score that day, but it's going to help you become a better athlete that day.
So why specifically, like why is it to people's detriment to focus on hitting a PR? Like why should they not do that?
I'm not saying that's wrong, and definitely not in all cases. Absolutely go into something with the mindset like, I want to hit this. But focusing on that being your only goal for the day is what I think would be the detriment. Meaning, how are you going to set yourself up for that PR? Because if you're only focusing on hitting like a certain number and a certain lift, you potentially aren't thinking about what's going to help set me up to reach that number or that lift. Is it the way I approach the bar? Is it getting myself super fired up? Is it taking appropriate jumps in my lifts on the way to that PR? And focusing on the process that's going to set you up to hit the PR, not just the outcome. So it's not, I don't think it's wrong or bad. I think it's awesome to think about what you want to do, but also then back it up with what are those how-tos? Like what's going to lead you to that result? What's going to set you up for success?
And then if they don't meet those external goals, right, they don't hit the PR, then I think it's really important for them to have the skill of knowing what's inside and outside of their control, right? What does that conversation look like for you?
For sure. And if they didn't hit the PR, they didn't achieve the number that they got, I asked them first and foremost, what did you learn? Was there a takeaway for you? Was there a learning lesson there? Because once you learn, you get better immediately. But the person has to take at least a minute to think about, what did I learn during that? And once you learn, you become a better athlete. The other thing I ask them is, did you struggle? Like, was it hard for you? Did you struggle? Did you get annoyed? Did you get pissed? Good. You got closer. Like helping the athlete understand that struggle isn't bad. Struggle is what we want. Mm-hmm. Frustration isn't bad. It's what we want. Now, we don't want you to stay frustrated, but we do want you to get frustrated. And we don't want you to stay down and pissed at yourself. But yeah, like if you are pissed because you put in a high effort and you're exhausted, like great, you got better. Mm-hmm. So what did you learn? And then appreciating the struggle, really.
Love it. And then obviously part of it being able to identify that at the end of the day, hitting a PR is slightly outside of our control. And so it does us no good to spend any amount of energy just worrying about and ruminating on what is outside of our control, right? And there's so many examples of this.
Yeah, of course. And that's why helping the athlete identify, again, what did they do to set themselves up for success? Great. Did you learn anything? If so, if not, all right, what can we do differently next time? And just breaking it down so it's not all win, loss, hit, miss, black or white thinking, and looking for along the way, like how are we growing? What are we learning? How are we developing as an athlete? And when you take notes and when you work with a coach that can help you understand that, most often you're going to be in a lot better headspace.
Mm-hmm. So I'm writing my master's thesis on grit right now. And so
that's cool.
I'm really deep into the research, and what I've found from the studies that look at grit in relation to sport performance. Yep. There are two constructs of grit. One is the consistency of interest, right? You're interested in the same thing for years at a time. Then there is perseverance of effort, which is you put forth a lot of effort for a long period of time. The consistency of interest they've found to be very little or no correlation to success, but perseverance of effort, very high correlation to success. With that said, the consistency of interest is like a prerequisite. If you're putting forth a lot of effort into CrossFit this year and then surfing next year and then kayaking the following year, you're going to be putting forth a lot of effort and getting like a little bit better at a lot of things, but you're never going to reach your peak at any one thing. So this is a really roundabout way of getting at this question.
No, I love it. I love this stuff.
And basically I'm getting at like, how do people find what they will be consistently interested in? And the reason I ask this is because I see so many CrossFitters doing things, and just people in general living their lives completely out of a state of doing what they think will impress others or what they think they should be doing.
Absolutely.
So I'm sure in your work you have conversations about like what people actually want to strive towards, right? And a lot of times I see CrossFitters that they're trying to make it to regionals because they think it's cool, not because they really, really want to. So how do you help people find what it is that they really want to do?
Right. Like, what would you do if you had all the free time in the world and money didn't matter? You know, we talk about that. And like, if you walked into a bookstore, what's the first place you would gravitate towards? You know, conversations and questions like that, just to get someone thinking about like, what do they really love and what are they truly interested in? I try to live like I'm retired, in the sense that like, this is truly what I would get up and do every single day.
Yeah.
And also I like other things too. Like, I love coaching people. I love talking about mental performance and developing blogs and products and programs for people to go through. But I also love being outside and, you know, doing a whole bunch of other stuff like surfing. And so for each person, it's obviously a little bit different, but truly, what would you do with your free time? And how do you want to spend the hours that you're given, and being really intentional about that? And again, if it's not sustainable, then it's not something that you truly love. Like, if it's just fleeting, like there's a lot of things that I do for just like a couple weeks or a couple months, and then they kind of pass through my life, and I'm fine with that. But if you desire to do it day after day, and it's like, the passion or the interest feels really sustainable, meaning I could see myself doing this for a long time and spending a lot of hours here. It's like what I do when at the end of the day and I'm trying to unwind, I'm still reading books about like peak performance. I love it so much, you know? And again, I've been doing it like 15 years. So I don't feel like it's going away anytime soon, but really trying to hone in on those things that for you just can't get enough of, you know?
Right. It seems like a useful mental exercise would be to also consider, like, let's take CrossFit competition, for instance. Would you still love to train if there was no competition at the end, right? Would you love to train for the sake of training, or is it that you just want to be able to say you made it to regionals?
Absolutely. And there's a lot of people that I work with that are the other way as well. They love training, but when it comes to competing, it's something that they just really don't enjoy. And if they could, they would just want to go to the gym and be great all the time. And it's partially my job to remind them, well, you don't have to compete. Right? Like, yeah, CrossFit, as far as like times and whiteboard and leaderboard, is a part of it, but you can limit that as much as possible to suit you. But yeah, it's a good question to have with coaches and with your training partners and the people who really care about you. Why am I doing this? Am I doing this truly to just get fitter and be more well-rounded as an individual, as a person, as an athlete? Am I doing this for, you know, social media or for money or for the wins that I'm hoping to achieve? And those are really,
they're not trying to do it for the money, because there
are
not much better ways to make money.
Right. But still, I think people see that. Like, they see glorified CrossFit athletes and they think, and people inside the sport know, like, people aren't making money.
Right.
But I think that people can see that and say, oh, they work out all day and they get money and they get sponsorships, and that sounds really cool. But really, it's not that glamorous. It's spending a lot of time in the gym, and that's about it.
Yep. Yeah. If you're not happy just with the daily grind and everything that I laid out in that process I explained earlier, then it's going to be like, you're never going to be happy, because the sponsorships and the little bit of money that you may get are definitely not going to make you happy.
I'm interested to hear what you find in some more of that research about like the people who have grit and they can persevere. How sustainable is that? If you don't have an underlying passion or interest for whatever it is you're doing, like you might be able to persevere for a short amount of time, but I feel like it's short-lived.
Totally. Yeah, I'll post it everywhere.
Cool.
So this was a question that I saw. I was browsing through your Instagram preparing for this, and I happened to see the post you made about this podcast. I've been off of social media for months now, so
Cool.
I'm glad I saw it in time. So the post you made was basically just asking people what they wanted us to talk about, and one of the things that someone asked about was the importance of like quiet time, something like that. And that's interesting because I've been thinking a lot about solitude recently, because some of the most like powerful experiences of my life have been in complete solitude, like a meditation retreat or a backpacking trip in complete solitude. That have just been really, really transformative to me. So I'm curious, how important do you think solitude is? How beneficial do you think it is? And is it ever something that you recommend or prescribe to people?
I think it's incredibly important. I've been asked the question, like, what is one mindset related practice that you think is the most beneficial that most people don't do?
Mm-hmm.
And instantly it's like 10 to 20 minutes of silence every day, just by yourself, being quiet. Again, you could call that meditation, you could call it whatever you want to, but quiet solitude is what I'm talking about. And I think it's the most powerful practice, and it's the most overlooked and underused. And so I feel really strongly about it, that we can implement it into our daily life and our daily practice, but then also we could play with things that are a little bit more extensive, like you're talking about, and actually do some like a couple days of silent retreats, or 5 days, 7 days without social media, and just totally unplugging to a greater degree.
Right.
But I 100% agree with you that it's incredibly important. And the more uncomfortable, again, it is for you to be quiet or be still or do something like a float or turn off your cell phone, the more important it is for you to do and practice with and play with and experiment with. I couldn't feel more strongly about it.
I've found this thing recently, and this is like a common topic in the meditation field. I've discovered this thing about myself where I use all of these like personal growth tactics and tools such as meditation as just that. Like I'm trying to make myself better, which can actually take away from that experience. So basically, I'm currently trying to restructure the way I think about meditation in a way that I'm not trying to make myself better. I'm just trying to know myself more. Right. Yep. So it's not like how did I hear it? The looking at it as a way to make yourself better is like an aggression on your current self.
Totally.
Pretty interesting. So I'm currently trying to work on that mindset. But I say that to say I think solitude is kind of a dose responsive thing. Like if you can get yourself out for a day or more, I think you can really discover some new and exciting things about yourself. Like you can really get to know what's going on in your head when you disconnect from technology and your surroundings for a significant period of time.
I like what you said about that as far as not doing something just to improve or to get better. I've been caught in that cycle for many years before, and I still get caught up in it at times. But I think once you commit to doing something and you appreciate it, it changes. Like you no longer do it just to check something off a list or because you know it'll make you better. You do it because you truly appreciate it and enjoy it. And it helps you be a lot more present, and it's not like you're just doing something to improve or to get better. You're doing it because it's a truly enjoyable experience where you can feel really grounded or really at peace. And God knows we all need more of that in our lives.
Yep. So you told me earlier that in your 20s, everything was more, and you were all about achievement and accomplishment. And at some point that changed. So can you talk about what happened?
Yeah, I think it served me for a period of time. I was a hardwired, ambitious person that wants to um, be super independent and do things on my own and make things happen. And again, I think that served me to, in my early 20s, coming out of college, get the kind of job I wanted and be able to build up within the fitness field, to be able to move out to San Diego on my own, pursue my master's degree, work with clients, start my own business. And so it served me in a lot of ways, but it didn't serve me in a lot of other ways. Again, going through times of panic and anxiety attacks. I went through a period of insomnia while I was in graduate school that was just like driving me crazy, and just all sorts of different things that I wasn't healthy, in a lot of ways. Just hard driving to the point that it was really affecting my overall health. And I didn't even really realize it because I only knew one way. Like one time my friends came up to me, they were sitting around and they were like, "We just made a list about you." And I was like, "Okay, tell me more." Like, "We wrote down everything that you do fast. And we have a list of like 50 plus things."
Damn.
And they were just like laughing their asses off, Like, you eat fast, you talk fast, you drive fast. You're like the first to finish a test all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Everything I do. And I look back on it now and I laugh because it's totally true of myself. And I'm hardwired that way to like want to get shit done and be really efficient with my time. And I do a lot of things fast, but it wasn't serving me any longer. So much go, 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 do, do, do. I got to a place where I was like, what now? Like I already have my own business and a master's degree and I live in San Diego and I'm like 25 at the point. Like, so a lot of things started to change with me, like spiritual growth and personal growth, but being able to come to the point where it was time for me to slow down.
Right.
And to really start making some new, healthier practices and habits in my life that have helped me be way more sustainable in not only coaching personally, professionally, but also my personal life, just across the board.
And I know one of those things or one of these kind of leading concepts for you is essentialism, right?
Yep.
So can you talk about that a little bit? What is essentialism and what role did that play in overcoming that just constant like achievement mindset?
Yeah, somewhere along the line, I started reading and following more people in minimalism and essentialism. And to me, it's really just about making room for what's important and eliminating what is not. And everything from, people hear the words minimalism, they think it's all about the amount of stuff you have. Mm-hmm. That's a big part of it for me. Like, I want to be able to, at any point, throw what I care about in a car and go. And that's still how I live my life. And I continue to challenge myself to be even more of a minimalist as far as things are concerned. But it's beyond that. It's about making sure that you're creating space and time for what's really important to you and trying to eliminate or cut back and remove all the bullshit, all the excess. And a lot of that to me is about looking at what am I seeking and what am I chasing. And that's why early on, even setting up an online business, you would think the number one thing that you want to do is make money and grow followers. And I would get internet marketers and people coming up to me all the time like, we can make you so much bigger and let's do this and let's do that. I'm like, dude, I'm just not interested. Mm-hmm. Like, I want to make an impact on some people's lives and I want to help people out and I want to share my ideas. But growth is not what I want.
Right.
I wanted freedom at the time, just more freedom to like roam and explore. And again, like do a lot of cool stuff outside of work. So it's an important construct of my life. It's not everything, but I really do buy into the ideas of like being mindful about what you're allowing into your life and how you spend your time, how you use your energy, and making sure that at the end of the day, at the end of the week, at the end of the month, you feel really good about how you've used your time here.
Yeah, I could not agree more. Minimalism and essentialism, I think, are especially the essentialism is such a direct path to happiness that is so untapped for people. I mean, in a nutshell, it's just like doing more of what you love to do and letting all of the other bullshit go, right?
Yes.
All of the things that we think we should be doing or that we're doing out of obligation, we just give ourselves permission to let go of those things and rid them from our lives.
Right. And there's so many things that you can do just every day to that are like helpful practices and habits that are kind of in line with essentialism that also help your focus because you're doing one task at a time. You have a clear desktop. You have a, your inbox is clear. Like just different things that you can do throughout your day in your life that really helps with like mental freedom so that you can focus on what really matters to you and you can be very present with whoever it is that you're talking with at that moment. It has helped me for sure be the best coach that I can be because I'm able to give a lot to the relationships that I build and the clients that I have because I'm not so spread thin across the board with everything else in my life that doesn't really matter to me. So getting really clear.
What are a few of those things that you do every day that people can adopt?
Well, small things like having a really clean space. Like I get kind of anal about like any clutter, so I have to be like cautious that I'm not going too far in one direction. But and sometimes I like purposely leave stuff around so that I'm challenging myself that I'm not like too crazy about clean spaces. But just small things like making your bed and keeping your space really clean, all of your space is really clean, but especially wherever it is that you're going to be spending your time, like working. I have so many. I don't even know where to start. Obviously like morning routines and different focus habits, like just saying prayer before I do anything with a client or like even jumping on this podcast and just being really clear with what my purpose is and what my intentions are. But a lot of different things to like minimize again and remove excess and bullshit and things that don't matter and just try to clarify and simplify the process.
Nice. So we just wrapped up a camp in Miami, a brute camp. And one of the questions was, and I'll ask you this later, they asked me the question that I always ask at the end of the podcast, which was if you could recommend, if they're like, what one belief do you hold or what one action should people take that would have the biggest effect on their life and or performance in general? And I sat there for a second and then said, really what you just said, which is have an intention for everything you do and have a plan for every single day. So, that plays a role in my life in the sense that every night I write my schedule for the following day. I have my biggest task that I have to accomplish, but taking that a step further, I love what you said about praying before your client sessions. I'm not religious at all, but I do believe that setting an intention for any activity can only heighten it and bring the best out of you, right? For me, like I am working on preparing more. So by setting the intention, I like get myself to prepare more for meetings and for my obligations. And I'm just a much more higher powered individual. I think if everyone brought more intention to their life, they would be more successful and they would be happier.
I'm going to steal that at the end.
Cool.
I'm just going to be like, yeah, what he said.
Nice.
But yeah, I totally agree. Whether it's like you call it setting intentions, you journal, you pray, it's whatever, it's just being really clear with, hey, like, I'm thankful for this opportunity. I'm excited about this. Like I say, thank God for the gifts I've been given to be able to, again, sit down with you or share or whatever. But it can be anything. It's just about being clear with how you want to go about the next role you're taking on or the next task you're taking on in your life. And we need little pauses in the day in order to do that, like be able to have like just a minute to just be like, hey, okay, take a deep breath. Here's what's important. Here's how I want to go into this. And then boom, attack.
Right. How does essentialism relate to sport?
Good question. For CrossFit, I would say it's, again, about being very clear about what matters most. What things can I do in my training and in my day? They're going to make the biggest impacts on my overall ability as a CrossFitter. And being able to look at them. Like, if it's strength or if it's more aerobic work or it's more gymnastics work, it's improvements on your diet, improvements on your sleep, making sure you understand the hierarchy of what's going to help you most athletically, and then being really, really clear about trying to eliminate all of the other distractions that keep you from improving at that thing.
Right.
Almost every athlete I know wants to improve like their sleep, and they tell me like, I want to be more confident and I want to be more focused. But then I ask them about their social media habits or like their downtime and what they're doing that's restorative in their life, and they're like stumbling, right? Like not willing to, hey, I'm going to remove some of these things that are distracting from my clear purpose, which is to be the best CrossFitter I can be. And here's the hierarchy of, like we talked about, okay, sleep. For me, it's like sleep's first, nutrition second. They're basically the same. Mindset's third. And then it goes up from there as far as like training and the specific skills and other things that we can do to be a better athlete. But really understanding what's getting in the way of you being great like you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And let's try to eliminate. Let's like start the elimination process first.
Yeah.
Because we all are always looking for like, what more can we do? And like a lot of athletes feel like, oh, I have to do so much, right? Like I have to stretch and I have to do this body work and I have to. Like, obviously the first step to that is realizing you can, and that's a different mindset to begin with. Mm-hmm. But then adding more to their list isn't necessarily helpful.
Right.
But trying to clarify what's most important and keying in on that and creating habits around those things, that's what's going to help an athlete excel.
Yep.
So it's all tied in. Essentialism to me is tied into any role that we play.
Yeah. I have one really kind of practical example here. If you look at Rich Froning's performance and what the first games he was at, what was it? 2010? Yeah, 2010, right? He couldn't do a rope climb, comes back the next year and he wins the rope climb event, right? That is essentialism at its finest in a very
totally
physical
true.
sense. He identified a weakness and he went from the worst at the games to the best at the games in that one movement. How many people listening to this, you needed to get stronger last year, right? During the Open, and this year you were just barely stronger. The problem is that people try to do so much throughout the year that they can't really work on and get way better at a few things that if they get better at those things will have a huge impact on their performance. They just try to do too much. And I think it's such a good metaphor.
Yeah, a lot of parallels there.
Yeah.
I agree. It's just, it's funny like that because CrossFit, there's so many things to try to get better at, but really there's a handful of things that make big impacts on your overall fitness. There's really only a handful of different things that you could practice with consistency and put a lot of your time and effort into that could make you a better athlete. But since there's so many skills and so many movements and so many other shiny objects in CrossFit, like people get all over the place with that. And I would say that the better you want to be as a CrossFitter, the more important it is to spend time on your weaknesses. But really just to be a healthy person, to be an average CrossFitter, it's not as important that you don't go in the gym every day and drill your weakness. But the better you want to be, the more time you got to spend with what's really challenging and tough and a struggle for you. And if it's been exposed before, I would only hope that you were excited about not having it be exposed again in the future.
Right.
And that's what the best in our sport do. They begin to love their weakness. They get obsessed in like a good way. I mean, like
you have to.
I do not want this ever again to be my limiting factor. Yep. And that's interesting psychology right there because you're looking at something that you're not good at and you're focusing on how you don't want it to be a weakness anymore. And sometimes it's more motivating to think about how I don't want this to limit me in competition. I don't want to fall off the rope again in front of a million people than it is to think about I want to be great at rope climbs. You're more motivated by what you don't want to happen than what you do want to happen. And some people in psychology would be like, that's not good. Like make it positive. No, that shit works.
Yeah, totally.
In my opinion. So go with it.
As long as you can remember that pain, that's a huge motivator. That's a
right.
gift
until you
sometimes.
have it. Yeah, that's what I think too. Because until you really experience it, you could try to visualize in your head, oh, I don't want to mess up on muscle ups in the competition. But you really have had that moment where you're failing and you're out there on the competition floor, you're not going to be able to draw from that motivation as much. So I look at it as a gift as well.
So Jared Moon is another guy that posted under your post or commented under your post. And he asked about the importance of an abundance versus scarcity mindset. He said, do you, meaning both of us, think most people just pay lip service to the idea or do they actually have it? then on top of that, in fitness and in business, would you say that you truly have an abundance mindset? Why or why not? So first, do you think that most people actually have an abundance mindset, or they just say they do because it's like a moral thing these days? And maybe talk about what those two are for a second.
For sure, living in a state of abundance, the mentality is that there's enough to go around for everyone. We can all succeed. We can all thrive. We can all have our slice of the pie. It's not like, oh, Michael is succeeding, so I have to be worried that his podcast is going to take off and mine's not, and he's better than me. And this constant state of comparison, and that feeling that you don't have enough. You're never going to be enough. You're always thinking about what you don't have. So I believe in the abundance mindset. It's just more like there's enough to go around for everyone, and let's all succeed and let's help each other. And I'm not concerned about how anyone else is doing because I'm on my own journey and I have more than enough to not only be successful in this life, but to have a great experience in this life.
Mm-hmm. So do you think people have it, or they pay lip service to it?
I would say, like, generally, no, I don't think most people have it. I think most people know that gratitude is important, and appreciating people and the gifts you have and the experiences you've been given is important. But I don't think many people practice that daily.
Right.
Practice that, like, true appreciation and gratitude daily, which really helps with the positive mindset and the abundance mentality. So I would say no. What do you think?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think personally, very few people have it. Professionally, almost no one has it. I think when it comes to business and finances, people are in such a state of fear and of scarcity that they just can't even begin to get themselves to that position. For me personally, I'm actively practicing on cultivating that mindset. And one of the ways I do this is through this podcast. I've had almost all of my direct competitors on this podcast, allowing them, like, giving them a platform to spread their ideas and to give them business. And I think and at times I've thought, do I really want to do that? Do I really want to help my competitor take away, potential clients from me? And at the end of the day, I know the CrossFit space, the functional fitness space is so big. There's, like, as you put it, like, there's so much room to go around for everyone, and together we're just spreading good ideas and we're growing the community together. So that's one of the ways that I practice and cultivate it for myself. But I definitely have moments where I'll see someone post something that they did that was awesome, and I'll feel less than because of that.
Right.
And I have to just notice that in myself and try to let that go and keep. I think the important thing is, like, the way that we act, right? It's not necessarily the internal dialogue, because that's just bullshit,
messy
noise. Yeah. It's the way that we act. How are we treating those around us? How are we treating the people in our environment, whether it be local or globally? And how are we treating those people that, like competitors and such?
Right. I agree with you. I think another practice that a lot of people can implement is when you start to feel that way, like they're better than me, or they're awesome, or I'm never going to be enough. It's like everyone's on their own journey. Everyone has their own why, and their purpose might be very different than you. But to remind yourself of, like, what my own purpose is. And that just, again, helps you reground yourself or recenter yourself on what really matters to you, and how can you, like, what can you do about it?
Right.
Because we can't do anything else about anybody else's success. And it feels best to me to wish them well and to want to help as many people as possible to get to where they're going.
Right. For me, the growth mindset versus fixed mindset conversation is very closely tied to this idea, the scarcity abundance. And I find that when I'm in that, like, scarcity mentality, it's in an area of my life where I'm being fixed minded that I don't think. So basically, let's say I see Ben Bergeron post something and I feel envious and I feel less than. In that moment, if I feel less than, then I'm basically feeling like he's better than me and he's always going to be better than me. Another way to look at it is for me to be excited for him and inspired by him, and for me to know that with hard work, I'm going to improve and I'm going to be awesome. You know what I mean? So just identifying that I'm being fixed-minded about something can immediately switch it, just noticing that in me.
Yeah, I think that's helpful too, to find people in our lives where we feel a sense of envy, or we feel a sense of like, damn, look at them go, because that helps draw us closer to what our own purpose is. The people that we feel like really, if you could say, you know, there's 2 or 3 people in your life who you feel most envious about, well, what are they doing that you envy? Or how are they acting, or who are they being? So go closer to that, like chase that down. That's a really good way, I think, to help us realign with how are we living our lives. And if it's not true to who we want to be, then what the hell can we change? Let's do it.
Hell yeah. Okay, I've got a few questions before we wrap it up. First, what book have you given as a gift most often, or recommended to others?
Ooh, it's probably a tie between The 4-Hour Workweek and Love Does, a book by Bob Goff about just spreading love.
Cool. What's a belief that you hold that if others held would have the biggest effect on their life and performance in general?
That you are enough without achieving or accomplishing anything specific. You are more than enough. You are great and you are good without having to do anything.
Do you have any resources for people to dive into that idea?
To me, it's like a spiritual thing. It can be, I think that you can discover pieces of it in like mindset related material, but to me, it's about developing spiritually, really, and really learning to appreciate that, like, you're a gift here on earth and you're great and you are loved, and living from that place can help you accomplish and do more and affect more people than trying to live for the next hit, you know?
Cool. What's one action you'd recommend people take immediately?
Quiet time every day.
Quiet time every day.
Also, ice baths. I'm become a really big fan of ice baths, but I wouldn't say like everyone has to do that. But I mean, experiment with it, play with it.
What, like any specific prescription, or just like get in an ice bath every day?
Yeah, you could start with a Wim Hof prescription for cold showers, which just slowly over a month helps you take longer cold showers, starting at 15 seconds, but building up to a minute. And then from there, jump into actually taking about 1 to 2 minute ice baths, fully shoulders under, and learning how to breathe and respond to the adrenaline rush and the reaction of, I hate this, it's cold, I want to get out of here. But it can teach you a lot about yourself. It's obviously great physiologically, but I think the psychological benefits are astounding.
Cool. I think that's it.
Awesome.
Yeah. You've got a couple new things. You've got a podcast coming out. Tell me about it.
So I haven't started it yet, but I'm going to start it real soon because I'm finishing one project and then I'm going to jump into the podcast. But I'm going to do just daily personal growth, quick mindset material, like 5 to 10 minutes.
Nice.
So in the future,
actionable stuff for people, huh?
actionable stuff, and just quick listens, quick reminders. We all need reminders. I need them all day long. And so just something consistent for people to be able to listen to challenge their brains a little bit.
Cool.
But I'm wrapping up finishing touches on re-releasing the Mentality WOD program that I have on my website, which is specifically for CrossFit athletes. Other high achievers could benefit from it as well, but really lays out the steps to methods that I've used with athletes now, like over 10 years, for what you can do to improve your mental performance, obviously in the gym, in your training, in competing, but it's more than that.
Awesome. And is it like a video course, or what does it look like?
It looks like programming. So instead of getting your like aerobic capacity 2 workouts a week, you're actually be getting mental training work. And so every month you will be able to access new training. Mm-hmm. And I have it set up for a year's worth of content. Mm-hmm. So every month you'll be released to new mental training content, and you can work that into your week as it fits you. I recommend it for athletes on their off days or when they have a little bit of extra downtime, but each piece will take like 10 to 15 minutes to just go through. So similar to a ROM WOD or aerobic capacity workout, you're receiving mental training programming, and you can integrate it immediately, no matter what level you're on.
That's so cool. I love it. And they can find you on Instagram at Mentality WOD, correct?
Yep.
And what is your website?
MentalityWOD.com. There's a place you can sign up to receive a free download and jump on the newsletter and get other exclusive content, and the program will be released on there. Anyone with any questions, feel free to reach out anytime, Dawn at MentalityWOD.com.
Hell yeah. Thank you so much, Dawn. This was great.
Thank you, Michael. It was great.
This episode is finished, but your training journey continues. Head over to brutestrengthtraining.com/SSW and grab your free pack of 32 accessory workouts that you can incorporate into your training and start improving your strength immediately. That's brutestrengthtraining.com/SSW.